We are continuing Ashach Aruch Orach Chaim, discussing Hilchot Shabbat, and starting Siman Shin Aleph on the Ayin Zayin Amud Aleph of your regular prints of Mishna Berura, discussing the halachot of starting really a whole new segment of Hilchot Shabbat, and that is what you can and what you cannot wear on Shabbat, going out from home to the domain outside. Be'eze keli mutar latzet b'Shabbat ve'eze mehem asurin. This is a long and fundamental siman with Nun Aleph with 51 sifim, which is very all-encompassing when we get to the halachot of Hotza'ah. Really, this is the beginning of that sugya. Ein larutz b'Shabbat ela im ken hu ledvar mitzvah. Starts with very simple halacha that you should not be running on Shabbat unless you're running for mitzvah. Now, you shouldn't run on Shabbat because the pasuk says im tashiv mi Shabbat raglecha, and the Gemara darshins that a person's walking on Shabbat should be that of calmness, and we're not running. You assume everything has been done. Kol melachtecha asuyot. This is the Gemara in Shabbat Daf Kuf Yud Gimal, that a person ought to assume that everything that he needs is already done. Shelo yeh hiluchecha b'Shabbat ki hiluchecha b'chol. Your walking even should be different on Shabbat than the way you walk on regular weekday. On weekdays you run to do your things, hopefully. And on Shabbat, you want to assume that everything is done. You're calm, you're composed. You walk calmly, contemplating and enjoying Shabbat. At the same time, the Gemara says in Masachat Brachot, Daf Zayin, that mitzvah larutz lidvar mitzvah. It's a person, le'olam yarutz adam lidvar mitzvah, should always run to do a mitzvah, afilu b'Shabbat. Actually, the Gemara there says, Rabbi Zera commented that originally when he saw Talmidei Chachamim running to the Bet Midrash, running to the Shiur, he said, "Oh, mechalili Rabbanan Shabbata." They are disrespecting Shabbat. You should not be running on Shabbat. And then when he heard that it's mitzvah to run for a dvar mitzvah, for learning, for doing a mitzvah, it's the proper thing to run. Then he says, I started running to go to the Shiur as well. So therefore, Im ken hu ledvar mitzvah kegon lebet knesset. You're going to Bet Knesset, you're going for a dvar mitzvah, that would be obviously a positive thing to do. Now the Mishna Berura writes, not only on Shabbat a person should not be taking large steps, but even bechol, even during the weekday, says the Magen Avraham, a person should be careful not to take psiya gasad denotelet echad me500 me'or eina, because it takes away from a person's eyesight. On Shabbat is an additional issue of im tashiv mishabbat raglecha ma'asod derachecha. Therefore, a person should be careful. Now, same is also for jumping, as the Rama is going to say. The Rama writes, "V'asur lifsoa psiya gasa." It's prohibited to take large steps, and the Mishna Berura says not only large steps is a problem, but even jumping is also a problem. Now, the kids who jump and they have a lot of fun with jumping, that would be of course okay, but a person that's adult should not necessarily be doing that. Now, this opens, of course, door to a larger discussion of what is considered enjoyment, because we find this also in what it is mutar and not mutar to read on Shabbat, which we're going to discuss in the upcoming simanim, in Siman Shin Vav, Shin Zayin, of magazines and books and science books and so on, news. A person can you read news on Shabbat? You enjoy it. You want to know what's happening in the world. But at the same time, it's like shtarei hediotot. It's not any different than other things that it will be prohibited to read on Shabbat. Those are things that we're going to, Be'ezrat Hashem, spend time and discuss. We say it's asur even during the regular weekdays. Now asur is discouraged. And we say over here that you could run on Shabbat for Dvar Mitzvah. It's also mutar to take Psiag Asa on Shabbat, which is interesting because the Gemara says, as we mentioned before, that Psiag Asa takes away from a person's eyesight, and therefore it really would be questionable. This is the same Gemara in Kuf Yud Gimel Amud Bet, Gemara Masechet Shabbat. But Gemara in Psachim Daf Hey says that a person is not supposed to put himself in a situation of sakana, even for doing a mitzvah. Now the Gemara there in Daf Chet discusses the parameters of this, whether it's shchichi ezeka, lo shchichi ezeka, and so on. But it becomes a little bit of a question. But again, Rabbi Tzchak Palaji, Rabbi Chaim Palaji's son, and his brother Rabbi Avraham Palaji, in his sefer Pada'ed Avraham, which we actually have over here, it's not an easy sefer to get a hold of. He writes that on the contrary, when a person is running for mitzvah, it's not just a physical thing, a reality that happens. It has a spiritual element to it as well. That mitzvah Hashem bara meirat enayim. When you run for a mitzvah, when you do a mitzvah, it's meirat enayim. It lights up your eyes, and so on and so forth. Now, Chacham Ovadia, in his sefer on Shas and Maor Yisrael, he writes in Chelek Aleph on Brachot, Davav Amud Bet, he brings what the Meiri says in Masechet Shabbat over there, that even during the weekday, a person, as much as possible, should stay away from Psiag Asa, unless it's needed. Obviously, sometimes you gotta run, you gotta take large steps and go for your needs of the physical life. But nevertheless, if you have a tzorech to run to your job and so on, that also is part of your life, which is allowed, and it's not just ledvar mitzvah. Kol shken for dvar mitzvah. So you see from the Meiri that Psiag Asa, even during the weekday, will be mutar when you need it. Certainly on Shabbat, that would be a mitzvah to run. That would be fine. Meaning, if you're going for dvar mitzvah. So says the Mishna Berura. Well, we started reading the Rama. The Rama writes, "Ve'asur lifsoa yoter me'ama be'pisiya achat." Gives you with the shiur of what psiag asa is. If your step is more than one amma, your stride is more than one amma long, then it would be psiag asa already. Again, this is for a regular person. Benoni, obviously, if you have a person that is much taller than your average individual, obviously their legs are longer, and their steps, naturally, the normal step would be more than that of a Benoni. So again, Hakol lefi ha'inyan, but says the Rama, im efshar lo bepachot, if you can't do smaller than Amma, then that's what you should be doing. And the Mishna Berura explains that when you could do she'eh chatzi Amma ben regel regel, that the area open between the two feet are chatzi Amma. V'kaf regel achat hu gam ken chatzi Amma, because your feet itself is, each one foot is chatzi Amma also. So you are doing basically like ankle to ankle, or heel to heel. So one step, it's already, this is if the length of a foot is Chatzi Ama, that's already also included in the step that you're taking. So it's half a foot between the 2 feet, and one of the feet, one foot of yours also is included in that. So therefore, that would give 1 amma. That's how you measure it. Not that there's space between the 2 legs on the floor, open floor, it would be 1 amma. Says the Mishna Berura, Ve'adam ha'gadol biyoter kefi shiur psiya shelo. This is subjective. If you have someone really tall, then it will be more than an amma. It really depends on the person. So the average person will be an amma. Now, the Shulchan Aruch writes in Seif Bet, Bachurim hamit'anegim b'kvisatam, as we mentioned before, kids who love and enjoy jumping around on Shabbat and run around on Shabbat, that is ta'anug for them. Mutar v'chol nir'ot kol davar shemit'anegim bo. It's mutar for the kids to jump and to run and to play, what gives them enjoyment, and that's fine even on Shabbat. And same is with going to see lir'ot kol davar shemit'anegim bo. Go to see things that people enjoy watching, taking a stroll, seeing beautiful things on Shabbat, which calms the nerves and is considered ta'anug, is considered oneg Shabbat, will be also fine on Shabbat. Now, the kids also could play with games that are involving running, right? That's not just hide and seek, but even if they have to play, I don't know what involves running, but things that are very much the nature of the game is running around, that is completely mutar. Again, this is part of jumping and running, which is ta'anug for the kids, healthy kids running around, that is completely fine. Now, you have to ask yourself, why is it mutar just because it's considered ta'anug? Oh, if you love to do it, do it, be my guest. How does that exactly work? So, Rabbi Yosef asks this question in his Sefer Yaakov Yosef, that if you want to allow this, then we have to allow all of the dibur chol. I enjoy speaking about mundane things. Dibur chol on Shabbat is asur. How about if I really enjoy it? I really enjoy sitting and schmoozing about things that are considered divrei chol. And we learn from, of course, the pasuk that your speech should be different on Shabbat. Im tashib b'Shabbat raglecha, tzulcha v'sam b'chotshi, v'qarata l'Shabbat oneg, v'shem mechubad. Everything on Shabbat should be different, and we darshin that you should not be shelo yeh diburcha b'chol k'diburcha b'Shabbat. You should be different, and this way also you give everyone a different set of halachot. This guy enjoys talking about that, and the other one enjoys doing that. If you give enjoyment as a heter for people to do things that otherwise would be asur on Shabbat, then it becomes very difficult, right? Now, the Tshuvat HaTesher already says this, says, speaking at the idle talk, the Sicha B'Telah on Shabbat, people are not so careful to not speak, says the Tshuvat HaTesher, because they have ta'anug, because they have onik from speaking about politics, whatever it is that they speak about, or sports. But Aruch HaShulchan, Rabbi Michal Epstein, he writes in later on in Siman Shin Zayin, which mentions the halachot of what you could read and what you could speak about on Shabbat. He says even if you have enjoyment, even if you have ta'anug, still you're bound to the halacha, and that you can't speak mundane talk on Shabbat. You can't speak Sicha B'Telah on Shabbat, because that's asur mikar adin, right? Now, if something is mikar adin asur, then it will be a problem. So he gives already a little something. Sicha betela is asur darshan from a pasuk, but taking a big step or jumping, that's not necessarily ikar adin. Asur is something that the person should try to stay away from. That's how he seems to be saying it. But again, the question is a great question, which is asked by Chacham Obadiah's son. Now, the Rama says it's also mutar to go on a stroll, to go on a tiyul on Shabbat. Now, Maram Bet Yosef already speaks about this, and he brings it from different Sfarim, that a person should not necessarily be going on a tiyul on Shabbat. He says, שלטייל בשבת במבוי שיש בו עירוב בלי כיסוי הראש ובלי סרבל תלוי במנהג. אם נהגו שלא לטייל מנהג יפה הוא ואין להקל. וכן הביא בשתלי זיתים. So there's a discussion. The Maran Chida also speaks about this in Machzik Bracha, and he brings this language שאם נהגו לטייל מנהג יפה הוא ואין להקל בו. That if you have a minhag to go on a tiyul, then it's there's eruv, there's no problem halachically, then it's a good thing on Shabbat to go on a walk, to spend time with the family and so on and so forth. Ki minhag kasher hu. The shanot I fat Shabbat. This is the minhag that you have for people resting on Shabbat, taking strolls with the family on Shabbat is considered something positive, and people actually do a different type of dress. He says Maran Chida in Machzik Bracha, which is all good. So says the Shcharuch in Seif Gimal. Haya olech v'higia la'amat hamayim. If you're going on your path and now you have to contend with an amat hamayim, you have a big passage of water that you have to pass. You have to go through it, and there's no bridge to go. So you either could jump over it, but then you would have to take, it's bigger than psia gdola. You mamash have to jump. You stretch yourself to jump over it if you don't want to walk through the water. So it says the Shcharuch, you could jump over it. Even if it's wide enough that you can't just step a big step and you mamash have to jump, it still would be mutar. It's better to jump over it than going around and lengthening your way on Shabbat. You're bothering yourself, extending your path for no reason, well, not sufficient reason, and therefore it's better to jump over it. And Shulchan adds, ve'asur la'avor ba. You should not be going through the water, shelo yavor lideh schita, because then you have to contend with bigger issues of your garments being completely soaked, and you may come to squeeze and do schita. Therefore, a person should stay away from that. Now, it says the Mishna Berura Siman, if you can't jump over it, it's too wide, then you go around, but you should not be going through it because of the issue of chashash schita. There are exceptions to the rule. We're going to have in both Sif Dalet and Sif Vav scenarios in which you could pass through water, and get wet, which we're going to see. But that's only in extenuating circumstances that you have a heter. But in regular basis, you should not be going through the water because you want to prevent yourself from chashash schita, which B'ezrat Hashem we will continue and we will learn in the days to come.